During this Hispanic Heritage Month, we're going to take a look at the efforts that the Harris and the Trump campaigns are making to court this key voting bloc, which is among the fastest growing in the country. And somebody who knows more than me and is smarter than all of us, Maria Teresa Kumar, the CEO and the president of Voto Latino. Maria, un placer. Always to spend time with you.
So can we cut that clip and remind that to my husband when he basically says that we should go toe-to-toe, and you're like, no, she's the smartest one.
I'm happy to clarify that he needs to, he needs to take a seat.
Part of that clip.
He needs to take a seat. Let's talk about this. Voto Latino Foundation just rolled out this massive, drive to mobilize the Latino vote. I'm based out of Miami. I get it. Had a great conversation with Paula Ramos the other day about the importance of the Latino vote. But, I mean, I think we talk about this every election cycle, and yet talk about why it's so critical, this one especially.
Well, you know what's really exciting about the Latino community is that we are such a young community. So in rapid clip, we are helping change states that people thought were not up for grabs. They are, but simply because you have tens of thousands, in some cases hundreds of thousands, new Latino voters that didn't exist just 4 years ago. So even in Pennsylvania, where it's going to be super close, you have a good third of the Latino electorate is under the age of 35. In Arizona, it's 40%. In Nevada, it's literally 30%. But in Texas, it's close to 50% of the Latino vote is under the age of 35. And you have a massive amount of groups that just are not registered to vote. And so Vota con Ganas is all about saying, you know what, the water's warm. Come in, register, vote, participate, because this election is going to be decided by young people in these key states. Even when you see a place like Wisconsin, the reason that we basically got a Supreme Court was because all of those young people, disproportionately young people of color, came out and said, no, we actually want to revisit that Supreme Court.
But when you drill down, though, is there a common denomination in terms of the issues? Because we talk about the, quote, young vote, and we never want to talk about voting blocks as being monoliths. But is there some kind of, I guess, common denominator issue that also is resonating with the younger Latino vote that we're seeing in other demographics?
So the number one issue that we saw back in April, Katie, among 18 to 29-year-olds was housing, the cost of housing. And for us, we thought, oh, it's because you want to move away from your house, from your parents, or you want to live by yourself because you're tired of your roommates. No. In our focus groups, there was a young man. He was 22 years old. He was a baggage claim carrier in Phoenix, Arizona. And he says, when I speak about housing, I'm trying to balance my budget to see if I can afford my rent and afford 1 or 2 meals a day. Wow. That's really deep. And so it was not a surprise that Kamala Harris's campaign 2 weeks ago came out on signature housing because she recognizes that this multicultural generation of young people are facing issues that oftentimes single mothers face. When we did that same survey, 35% of Latino youth in the last year had to add government housing, government subsidies to their everyday living, and 22% went on to find another job. So they're not slackers. They're literally bearing the brunt of an economy. And Kamala Harris is saying, well, we're forgiving student loans. Yeah. We're helping you
home buyers,
but we're also going to also build out affordable housing for you. That sounded almost like, a dog whistle for older people, but no, this was literally 18, 20, 29-year-olds.
So one thing that always sticks in my craw is disinformation and misinformation campaigns that are happening on Spanish language. I am blessed to be able to speak, read, and write Spanish fluently, but I'm concerned that there's no, real fact-checking that's going on, and it's allowed to happen unfettered. Are there kind of some moves that are being made by, frankly, both campaigns to try to capitalize on the idea that Spanish language is the way that information is disseminated?
Well, I mean, I think on one side of the campaign, they're the perpetrators of the disinformation.
Yes, the
so it's really interesting. One of the things that the campaign is doing on Kamala Harris is that they're employing a lot of TikTok artists. They're really bringing in individuals to start talking about her agenda. One of the things at Voto Latino that we've done since 2022 is that we actually started combating disinformation by identifying everyday people who are hearing it and saying, well, what makes you think that? And then we do counter-messaging. And we found that by counter-messaging, it's an incredible intervention because not only are we able to convince people that government works for them when they vote, but then they stop spreading disinformation as well. At the end of the day, what we find in the Latino community is that we live in such a balkanized community of information sources that unless we have people there constantly talking about the issues that they care about, then you do have nefarious actors that fill that vacuum.
I want to ask you, too, about what I think is such a patronizing and very transparently gross way that Donald Trump thinks that he can court a minority vote. Nicky Jam, the reggaeton artist. Donald Trump calls Nicky Jam a woman before Nicky Jam takes the stage. And for those of you who don't know, Nicky Jam is a man.
Right.
And Nicky Jam had endorsed Donald Trump to his millions of followers, but then he actually took it down and deleted it. But he actually gone so far as to say that he's actually withdrawing the endorsement. Right. But it just seems to be pandering, right? And I know there's a fine line between the sincerity of trying to court a vote and the pandering that we're seeing from the Republicans, but is there just an insult to the intelligence of the Hispanic voter to think that you want to put a reggaeton star on a stage and that means that, oh, I really understand you, Latino vote?
That's exactly right. And I think this is one of the reasons why when he came out and basically called him a woman, everybody was like, that actually tracks with you, Donald Trump. Yeah. You actually don't know who we are. You don't even know the person that just endorsed you. But there was also a massive backlash among the Latino community against that endorsement. Maná, who is an incredibly popular art, band around the country, basically said, we cannot work with you because this man, Donald Trump, is a direct threat to the livelihood of who we are as humans here in the United States.
Just as people.
As people. And so when we have these conversations in the Latino community, when we do focus groups, the number one reason people were even interested in voting for RFK was because they said Trump is too racist for us.
Oh my gosh. Right? But then RFK.
Well, no, but that was when we were trying to figure out, the moment, this is what's really exciting when we're seeing in polls, is the moment that Kamala Harris went to the top of the ticket, we saw a huge move from the third party, which we expected. So they went 60% Kamala Harris, 7% RFK. They went 29% Donald Trump. Donald Trump, all of a sudden, has a formidable opponent because she was taking from him. And we're going to see a real political realignment in closing voter registration gaps in places like Nevada, Arizona, even Pennsylvania, because she is on top of the ticket. And she's not only talking, she's not, her story is not just something that they identify with, but she's speaking to the issues they corely care about.
Maria Teresa Kuma, un placer.
Un placer siempre.
A pleasure always to spend time with you. Thank you for coming here. I appreciate it.